Hello everybody and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over the running back prospects that we're looking at for the 2025 draft. Obviously looking ahead quite a bit. We have just finished the 2024 draft cycle and here we are already looking at 2025. We've got 15 names in here and we'll go through in deep looks. I watched 15 guys, but we'll brush over the bottom 5 and then kind of get into the top 10. Honorable mentions go out to Kyle Monengai, Jordan James, Donovan Edwards didn't make this list, Raheem Rocket Sanders transferred from Arkansas to South Carolina. He also did not make it, and Taj Brooks and Devin Neal both outside this top 10, which I know a lot of people are high on Devin Neal, but I thought there was like just a lot of good and bad from Neal. I think the traits are there and especially has a chance to emerge with more time in college, but I just don't see an awesome running back that makes guys miss left and right like people have talked about, or someone that has a really high ceiling and physically limited as a player as well. And we'll start with my number 10 running back is Dallan Hayden, the Ohio State transfer, goes to Colorado. He's a junior. He's 5'10", 205. At least that's what's listed on the paper. Now this kid's got a good situation ahead of him, and I think we'll look at some of the pros here to start. The contact balance stood out right away. He's kind of, brushing guys off and just continues as he was. Like, he didn't even have to think about it. It just happened for him, kind of ran. Didn't even have to look at the guys. Just shrugged him off and didn't think twice. He has explosive but powerful bursts, man. When he gathers his speed and lowers his shoulder, he's really good and can have that ability to just gather up and then translate that speed to power sort of concept. Meanwhile, he still has some of that wiggle to him in case he needs to make guys miss with some of the quicker moves or stay light on his feet. Shows promise to be really good as a route runner and just even in the passing game as a whole. The right scenarios and the right plays, third or second and 10, my bad. You're in a situation where you're trying to make it easier on third down, get it to like 3rd and 5 and lower. So you go say, hey, Dallan, come out of the backfield, catch the football and be an asset in the pass game that way, make it easier for us on 3rd down when we're struggling on 2nd. And I think he has great upside, and like I said, showed promise as a route runner and someone in the pass game. His agility and his cuts are just very subtle. They didn't look special, and even at higher speed he's still very effective and can make people miss. Then 2nd level looks good for him, and then takes a step out and you're not like wowed because of the distance from right to left, but it just stands out because he constantly makes people miss. And it looks like I said how earlier the contact balance stood out. He like sidesteps and then guys just kind of brush down his side. Very subtle, not as like special. And a good thing with Dallan is he's always falling forward or putting defenders or pulling defenders, and getting upfield with those guys draped on his back, an extra 2 or 3 yards, which is always nice. He's not going backwards very often. I don't think his initial instincts or his feel is the strongest. I think it may come with more experience and reps. Didn't get a whole lot with Ohio State, had a few good games, but other than that, like, just saw very limited time on the field. So a reason he transfers out and a reason that this may be an issue for him at first is the instincts and the feel, like I said, aren't really the strongest for him. And I thought his vision, like, it wasn't really too broad, or it was very broad and didn't have a very wide peripheral vision, if you will. He doesn't ever hop out or take chances outside. If the first seam's an option, then he's going to go there. It's not like he's going to improvise and try to get outside because he thinks there's something there. He's very within the structure and scheme of the run play he's in, and he's like trying to do it by the book, and it works for him most of the time. But I'd like to see him trust his initial feel and maybe run outside or something. I don't know. Speed of the burst on the 2nd level was lacking just ever so slightly. There's a few runs you look at and it's like, dude, if you were just like this much faster, if you had a tad bit faster, it's a breakaway, big play, and you're going for an extra 20 yards, but just can't get out of there. Even with the power Dallan has when finishing runs, short yardage situations are definitely not a strong suit for him. Something I think consistently showed is like a 3rd and 1, I would not give it to Dallan Hayden. You're seeing like a completely stacked front, doesn't matter. I don't think he had that in his bag as some of the other guys do in this class. And I'll tell you what, that Colorado offensive line isn't projected to be really great. Probably not the first places you want to put Dallan Hayden in to run is not those shorter yard situations. There's lots of upside and promise for Dallan if he's the lead back for Colorado and they improve that line and the situation around him. There's no telling how high he can fly, man. I love the skill set, love the upside. I think he'll only get better with more snaps, and we'll see a workload and hopefully Hayden gets some of that run at Colorado and becomes and maybe develops as the lead back there, as I think he has all of the ability to do so. Next guy we'll talk about is also a transfer, went from Oregon State to Miami. It is running back Damien Martinez, who's listed at 6 foot 232, and he's huge. And on paper he's listed at 232, but I'm not quite sure about that, though he's more agile than I thought he'd be after seeing his size. 6 foot 232, you don't expect guys to move like him, and I think especially at the line, he's more elusive at the line than anywhere else. He's moving slow enough to move his big ass and make people miss around the line and make sure that he can get east and west. There's glimpses of great acceleration time to time, and Martinez pairs it really well with his go-to spin move. Maybe bursts through the first level, gets to the second level, has a linebacker crashing down, whoop, makes him miss with a spin move, gets out of there. And again, I think that the pairing of the acceleration and his go-to spin move, he's a spin move guy. I don't think that he had much else in his bag when you're talking about like elusiveness or any make you miss. He's actually really good in the screen game. He's got the patience, and he's quite urgent when moving upfield. Once he's cleared some of the first roadblocks, if you will, moves upfield and stays away from anyone behind him. I know he said he's quite patient, but also gets upfield in a hurry. But that's like, you're waiting for the situation to develop, and then you break through that first roadblock, we'll use that word again, and then he'll just fly up the field with no care in the world about what's coming and chasing behind him. As you think, for a guy his size, he was fun to watch in pass pro. He's a pretty good and had a nice anchor power to him, and anchored down and was able to take care of it. DJ Young Gigolo. Although he was constantly running outside in more lengthy plays, despite his skill set and his size being so much better in between the tackles, and maybe this was a preference thing for him. I couldn't tell you, but I just think that there were times where, dude, there's no reason you should be stretching Damien Martinez out, and I don't know, to me it was a little questionable. He was faulty in pass pro against quicker defenders, maybe a blitzing linebacker or nickel back that comes off like a nickel blitz and gets to him, and they just straight up make him miss, and doesn't really track well with him and his longer legs. And like I mentioned earlier, he's pretty big, so it's harder to move. Below the waist tackles are a big weakness, especially the tripping. Shoelace tackles seem to be pretty effective versus Martinez as well. I think just the lower than the waist seems to be something that Martinez doesn't really have a problem with. And then the tripping and the shoelace tackles, it gets him on the ground quite often. And we talked about him maybe stretching these plays out, maybe running outside, how he's good in the screen game, stuff like that. But I think he just needs more fearlessness in his game, something I can see him acquiring in Miami, or at Miami, or with Miami. They're a little bit more of the hard-nosed team. I'd like to see him in a little bit more of the downhill. You just fly into that to the line and see what happens. And he's pretty good at digging out yards, if you will. And I think once he develops a little bit more fearlessness, like I mentioned, he wouldn't be too scared, and that would be a big improvement in his game. Actually, he did not look 6 foot 232. If I had to guess, I would say he's more around that 5'11", 220 area. He wasn't like overly huge in both height and or weight. I think he carried 232 really good if he's really 232, but 220 is probably where I would have guessed he played at Oregon State. And who knows, maybe he gained 12-15 pounds this offseason and heading over to Miami, and they're looking to be a more downhill run attack sort of team. He's far more explosive and elusive than most guys at his size. Pair that with the power and intangibles, and you have yourself a really good running back. I hope he sees a more downhill, attack the middle sort of run game with Miami, and he can develop that part of his game as well. Like I said, with the fearlessness and all of that good stuff, could project really well in this upcoming season, and I would be excited and keeping tabs on his performance. One of my personal favorites, and I'm surprised he's this low, it's actually DJ Giddens of Kansas State. He's headed into his junior year. He is 6'1", 212, or at least that's what he's listed as. Might be a little heavier than 212, but who knows? I mean, 6'1" is also pretty big and stout, and he looks 6'1". He isn't intimidated, and he even still creates against the loaded fronts, and they're loaded because of him. Later in the game, third quarter, his first half, he went for like 70 yards or something, and he constantly breaks some of these tackles. It doesn't matter. You can load the front up. He's still going to create. He's still going to head in like it's any other run play. It's not like he's taking a different, more patient approach. I think he actually was pretty good and one of the better guys against loaded fronts in this class. He's definitely a willing blocker in pass pro, and even if it's leading to on a jet sweep or just something of that nature that he has to then run out to make a lead speed block, he's more than willing, and he does it. And it's not always like the prettiest thing, and nor should it. I mean, he's not polished in that area of his game or anything, so I wouldn't really expect him to be like a fullback. His one-step agility and pivots are awesome. He'll slow down a tad and make people look silly, you know, slow down, maybe chop up with your legs, and then just make your cut and go. And he just made people look dumb at times, especially for a guy of his size. Like I said, maybe a little heavier than even 212, and maybe made a cut this offseason, but he's got a little bit of a bigger frame at 6'1", and still had some of that impressive elusiveness. For a tall back, he runs with a very good pad level and never looks like a 6'1" or 6'1" human being as a runner. Like when he's standing up in the backfield, sure, maybe, you know, you compare him or size him up next to the quarterback and he looks taller, but as a runner, you wouldn't have guessed like he's 6'1" looking at, you know, how he gets through the line of scrimmage and stuff, and he even fits through some nice gaps and whatnot. Talked about how good he was against the loaded fronts, and this kind of ties into that. He'll dance and wait for an opportunity around the line of scrimmage when it gets congested or people start to funnel in. He loses his first option, starts to maybe slow down. He'll dance and kind of wait, be patient instead of diving in or just taking the outside and trying to beat everyone to the boundary. You know, he's really good at sensing and getting through the line there. Once he clears the line, it's full steam ahead. It doesn't look like he gets real decisive or really reads the field at all, or doesn't keep his vision or head up. He just kind of goes off, runs straight, tries to plummet down. I don't know. He doesn't really slow down or try to make people miss. Giddens could afford to keep his eyes up and extend that peripheral vision a bit. Sometimes he just doesn't see a gap or a hole that's right there in front of him, or right to the left or something like that, and then runs into like a plummeted front or something that, you know, goes for 1 yard instead of, oh, that cutback lane is 3 yards alone, so might want to go over there. Once he gets into that open space, it just becomes more apparent that he really isn't a home run hitter, maybe lacks some of that initial explosiveness in the open field, and he's fast, sure, but I just don't think, like I said, a home run hitter is in his description. Working outside is not a strong suit for Giddens. There's times where you watch it and you're like, just stick to the inside. No need to be running any outside zones or running back stretch to Giddens. I don't think that's really his game, and nor a strong suit of his. He's like a tweener between a power back and an elusive back, make you miss type of guy that honestly dampers down his talent. If he was more dominant, power runner, and still have a little agility, that'd be perfect for Giddens, but instead he still tries to play maybe a little bit lighter and likes to stay more nimble on his feet, so that's fine. But I would prefer Giddens as a full like power back that has shake for his size, and maybe a little bit better than some guys with like power with a little bit of that sauce. But I don't know, I like Giddens a lot. I don't know how he's this far down, but he's a really good running back in my opinion, and I want to see him excel this next year and maybe rise up some boards. Talk about TreVeyon Henderson, someone that's been in the college football landscape here for a while. Ohio State senior, 5'10", 208 is where he's listed. He fires out of the backfield like a damn rocket ship. He's got some serious go-go juice, and something that I have highlighted in the past with some of the guys, and especially not last season, is something he has. If he came out last year, I think his skill set alone gets drafted higher just because he's got a little bit more of that rocket ship to him, and like I said, a little bit more of that go-go juice. Very quality pass protecting back. He's got experience, the power, and the awareness when standing back there to block guys and try to keep guys away from his quarterback. And like I said, that experience definitely comes into play being a senior. He plays like he's trying to make the biggest collision possible. He fires up to top speed, then just literally tries to kill people. There's no regard to his own safety, and something that just stood out to me right away is watching him plummet up to the second level and just full steam ahead. He's not slowing down. He's not trying to make you miss. He's trying to make your spleen burst. I don't know. Displays a nice ability out of the backfield as a receiving threat and possibly a mismatch. He's just too quick for some of the linebackers and whatnot. So I like the projection of a more receiving back role for him because of some of the go-go juice mixed with top speed and stuff like that. It would make him a nice mismatch to some of the linebackers out there. He moves side to side with ease, and the fact that he can put his foot in the ground and explode at any time mixes really well with those lateral quicks. And what I'm trying to say is he can get any direction anytime he wants, and it really ties all together as a very solid base, I guess, to build off early in a run or whatnot. You have all the options. But now we'll get some of the downside. Like I question the decisions time to time, whether it's jumping into a wall or bouncing outside and going backwards instead of taking 3 yards up the gut, plummet there, and just, you know, take what your offensive line is giving you. Don't try to get pretty. Don't try to go for the outside or whatnot. And then when I talked about jumping into a wall, it's 3rd and 1, and you could stay a bit more patient, maybe work left or right or whatever with the flow of the play, but instead just decides to, Derrick Henry the whole situation and just jumps into the back of his lineman and gets stonewalled or something like that. Doesn't make guys miss too often, despite profiling like a guy that should be a monster in open space. I think he attempts to play chicken most of the time. Actually, he's gonna say, I'm gonna throttle all the way up. Are you gonna meet me in the A gap, or are you gonna meet me out the rim because I'm going right through you? And honestly, it's not really an ideal thing, especially for his size, but it's a fun skill set. And honestly, I enjoy the tape, but not the outcome. Henderson, a speed demon that has great lateral movement, actually prefers to play with power and what looks like the game he plays to see how bad he can hurt defenders. And I don't know, he plays this game maybe in his head in games, and he maybe does GPS tracking or something and said, I'm gonna kill you the fastest. He points at a linebacker, and that's gonna scare the crap out of a linebacker. It would certainly scare me. That's all I'm gonna say. Next, we'll talk about Cal running back Jaydn Ott. He's a junior, listed at 6 foot 210, and he shows the ability to change style and fix mistakes in the same game he's making those mistakes. He went from an impatient running back and running into walls to a patient and getting free sort of guy in one of the games I watched. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but he just completely changed his style and fixed those mistakes. Lateral agility is really good. The bounce and the fluidity in his step and the cuts just all look very fluid, nice, effortless. And like I said, it's just really fluid in the way that he moves laterally, I guess. I don't know, I went a little too long with that one. The patience is crazy. He has an emphasis to some of the defenses he's against, and he becomes one of their, you know, watch out for Jaydn Ott. Obviously, I can't remember, I think he was number 1, so watch out for 1 when he's running the ball. But he handles those heavy boxes and the special attention and the loaded fronts with really good patience and makes sure he makes the right decisions. And like I said, the patience is just crazy. Solid and aware in pass pro. He'll plug gaps in the middle one play and then help protect the edge the next. I really like that from him as well. The ability to not just like, oh, okay, if a linebacker comes, I'll take care of it, but like, oh, if this edge rusher is getting in too quick, I'll make sure to help over there next time, not even with a chip, but just to full on try to shut him down. Viable as a pass catcher. I don't know if I'd call it a strength, but I think he projects really well in the screen game and stuff like swing passes where you get the ball and then you read the field. And like we said, with the very good patience, I think he could make some good stuff happen as a asset in the screen game, and just stuff like some of the stuff to the flat out on the right, the left, depending on where some of the linebackers crash in from. You can wait those out, make a miss. I don't know. It's just he profiles well in that in those scenarios, I guess. I thought he had a tendency to go backwards time to time, you know, to skate towards the boundary or just wait things out, and it could be a bad habit that it was developed because he just did it. You know, with the patience, it works out so well for him so much. And then when it's like, okay, I can run to the boundary and wait it out over here while I'm still 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then all of a sudden his options go away and he ends up being tackled for a loss. There's not a dominant power presence in his game, and I think he has the ability to push a pile for 3 yards, but he never breaks tackles or chains together those big powerful runs where you see some of the guys, especially at his size. He's pretty thick, especially in that lower half, so I'd like to see him maybe tack on a few extra, you know, broken tackles run to run, and maybe see a little bit more of that headed into 2024. All caps, not a home run runner is what I had. Not a home run hitter, I guess. Home run runner. I can go deeper, but basically his brand of football makes it tough to pass that 3rd level, and he rarely tops the 2nd level as well. And there's times he does, and he has some pretty good speed, but like I said, the brand of football is weighted out. And so everyone knows it's a run play. And so guys are naturally going to fade down, making it tougher, or I guess harder, to get past that second and third level, just because he plays so patiently and everyone knows it's like a run play. So like I said, it's tough to pass that second level, let alone the third. I'm just going to call this now. People will be comparing Ott to Le'Veon Bell. He's bigger. He's a bigger back and patient as hell. Jaydn plays a very calculated game of football. I think he'll only get better this season, and he'll be a top prospect in this strong running back class for some people, for sure. I already have him, generally high in a good running back class. I think he's my running back 5, and that's high praise in this class. No, my bad. He's my running back 6, which is still pretty good, but I could see him climbing that for sure. Probably gonna sound like a hater with this evaluation, but we've got Omarion Hampton, UNC's running back, heading into his junior year, 6 foot 220. He's a very big, powerful running back. He doesn't ever really lose yards. He's very much a positive runner in any situation, or any situation or run play that is possible to gain yards. He's going to do it, but if the O-line breaks down, there's not really a whole lot anyone can do about that in times, or I guess at times, or if you want to be Magic and try to figure it out, go ahead, but it's a very low chance. There's glimpses of long build-up speed against App State. Crap, he's fast, and home runs are a part of his game. And like, sure, he flashed that ability, but it was against App State, and that's the only place I really saw it in my evaluation. So hopefully I see more of that in this upcoming season. Very tough to bring down. He'll get stood up, but won't get overpowered. So he'll still kind of push and until he's completely brought down. And I thought this was very similar to Bucky Irving last year, where he can get stood up, you can meet him there, but very like strong base, and so he's gonna still like use his legs. He's gonna keep him churning and try to push you back. He's not dead until he's on the ground. I guess that play is not dead until he's on the ground. You get what I was saying. Always tries to give his quarterback an option, either as a check down, and even in these improvisational situations. That's a big word. It's tough to read time to time, all right? Especially when you're sitting here and you're looking at a lot of words put together and they're stacked. It just gets that much harder. Anyways, I'm no Harvard applicant, but I know Omarion Hampton's pretty good. But let's hop into some of the bad. No wow factor when talking about the athleticism. I think he lacks speed, quicks, and his lateral moves look good for his size, but not anything crazy or out of this world. And that's something that I kind of realized time after time, game after game. I watched Omarion. I'm like I understand. People say he's got this speed and athleticism to him, but it just wasn't on display on tape, I guess. Maybe I watched the wrong, 4 or 5 games. It just didn't really have that wow to him athletically, in my opinion. All right, in my humble personal opinion. Contact balance isn't great. Defenders target his legs, and a lot of it seems to be effective. He also gets tripped up on linemen's feet and stuff around the line of scrimmage, running outside or trying to cut it up, and gets a little stumble, or catches a offensive lineman of his or a defensive lineman's shoe and just trips and goes down pretty instantaneously. I don't think he's very polished in pass pro. He can still stand a lad up and be great and powerful and whatnot, but when he gets pushed to the side or worked around, he's not much help. And I guess what that kind of means is, sure, he can have that base. He has this amount of space right here, but when someone attacks his shoulder or something and just pushes him out of the way, like, he doesn't really know how to keep that anchor and stay, I guess, posted into the ground. With the style of football this kid plays, he's trying to gather speed to convert to power, and that leads to less patience in some of the bad reads that he has, where if you were patient, okay, right there on the left, that's a little bit better of a gap there, and maybe something that you'd be interested in going, considering it leads to the second level and you'd be able to gather more speed and power that way. But the way that this kid plays, I just dropped my freaking stress ball, my little fidget here, but okay, anyways, it just leads to less patience. He doesn't have a whole lot of it. He's just trying to plumb it up and try to break as many tackles, get through the line, and wreak some havoc. And there's not a whole lot of patience in that run style. He's a low patience, toss myself into the line, play with power kind of player. I don't see any wow or constant thing to hang my hat on and say he's an awesome game-changing running back. To me, it's a bit smaller than Audric Estime, with a lot more fluidity and not nearly as stiff as Estime was. And Hampton can get to what the line gives him, plus an extra 5 to 7 yards after contact on his good runs. And so Hampton's good. I don't know what what's holding me back on him quite yet. I mean, hopefully I'll get my hand on it before, you know, the actual draft just comes up. But like I said, nothing I can really hang my hat on to say he's an awesome, like, game-changing running back and someone that deserves to be in the top 3 of this list. All right, here we go. Probably the first big wow of the video. I don't know where this guy is consensus, but I love Trevor Etienne. Florida transfer, headed to Georgia for this next season. Also a junior, 5'9", 205, a physically gifted and talented human being. And we'll hop right into what I love about Trevor Etienne and why he's this high for me. He is a bowling ball of athleticism and big playability. He's also very twitchy and can make defenders dance. I don't even mean miss, I mean dance, man. Get on the disco floor with Trevor Etienne. He's awesome. I love the ability there for sure. I think it's far better than some of the guys we've already talked about, if not the best. Stubborn runner and a really good finisher at the tail end of a run. He'll just keep his legs going, refusing to go down, tacks on a few extra yards that no one really expects him to get. You know, 5'9", 205. That's not a big running back, and I don't know what it is with me and small running backs. I loved Bucky Irving last year, and here I am giving my my very high praise to Trevor Etienne. All due respect, I love the way that he runs, and especially power at the end of a play. He just looks like an NFL back. I think the movement ability, the size, and overall athleticism reminds me of just watching an NFL running back. Like I say, like, okay, he gets somebody to the second level, he's almost always making the first guy miss. He's almost always doing something that I'm like, I've seen that in the NFL, and it's like on every single run that I see is good. And it's Trevor Etienne just looking like an NFL back, even when he's moving fast, and I mean firing through the second level fast. He can still make guys miss. It doesn't matter. Stop on a dime, skirt right to the left, and oh, sorry, bud, you're on the ground now just because you dove at where you thought I was going to be. He's going really, really fast, and all of a sudden just chops it up or something and makes you miss. Etienne slips, tackles routinely, and that, along with making people miss, leads to a lot of big plays and makes a lot of defenders look a little silly or out of place. And I don't know why it happens. I don't know why, like I said, with these smaller backs, but there just seems to be a little bit more like power to them. And 205 isn't heavy, but when you're 5'9", 205, that's a compact build. You have these like quads of steel, I guess. I don't know. Understands when he has to get outside, and he can put the burners on early. But when he's going up the gut, he's more patient and calculated. And this is like what we talk about with the quarterback throwing velocity and then throwing touch and trying to get it over a linebacker versus when you're just trying to rifle it in between two linebackers, right? And so it's the same thing here. When he's going outside, he knows the play is not there on the interior of that line. He is going to fly to the outside. But when, you know, things shuffle out in the middle of the field, he's going to stay patient. He's going to be calculated and try to cut it up the middle of the field with his vision as well. He also understands, shows the ability to get skinny, make anyone miss on any given play. Also, you know, has some leg drive and power that adds to that skill set. And what we talked about earlier with the slips, tackles routinely, and pair that to making a lot of big plays and making people miss. Sort of the same here, getting skinny, getting right there in between this tiny little line, and flies and bursts out of this tiny gap, and then, you know, makes someone miss or a linebacker crashes on, but it doesn't matter. He's going to finish the run pretty strong, keeping those legs, you know, churning, keep him going and try to stay up for as long as he can. Now, there does seem like plays where he prefers to be playing on the outside or just try to run and take it outside, maybe gets a little eager to take that run towards the boundary and try to loop out and try to find a way, an avenue from the outside. The line was good at blocking and gave him a free 15-yard run time to time. And I don't know if this is like everything, but it's okay. We have a play and we're supposed to be going up the B gap. Okay, Florida does a great job with run blocking. The B gap is wide open. He doesn't even have to think about it again. Just fly, fly, fly until he meets someone in the deep second level. And that's already 15, 20 yards down the field where he's meeting his first defender. So there are some plays in there for sure where it's like, okay, that's just really good run blocking against a bad defense or someone that ran a play that didn't, you know, schematically match what they were seeing on offense. Very active feet. So when a defender attempts to trip him or the interior pass rush comes in, or pressure, not even pass rush, but closes in, he becomes very susceptible to going down a little bit easier. With those very active feet, you're churning a lot. You're like a little bit smaller, closer to the ground, so you're taking a lot more steps. It's a bit more choppy. And so when things kind of cave in there, it gets a little tough. More places your foot can get snagged and more of the, I don't know, maybe someone reaches an arm around and gets something there. So I don't think that he was like the best in like really close quarters when he's trying to outrun someone, because he did seem to go down to trips, and then some of that interior pressure got to him early on in a down. It just wasn't pretty for him in some of those plays. But this is a physically gifted and talented human being. He has the highest of highlights and so many awesome athletic traits. With Etienne, it's always a big play waiting to happen. It's not like the same type of big play over and over again. He makes plays in all sorts of ways and has plenty of upside and a plethora. I think plethora is the right way to say it. I don't know why I'm second guessing myself, of ways to make big plays. And so really intriguing prospect with Trevor Etienne, and someone I'm really, really high on. My top three backs are all really close together, all tiered the same. So someone had to be running back 3, and people are going to be mad at this, but it's going to be Quinshon Judkins, the Ole Miss transfer, headed to Ohio State, headed to his junior year as well. 6 foot 219, might as well round up for him. 6 foot 220. Very physical runner with a nimble and fluid run style. He just has clean, easy footwork, and when he has to lay the wood, he ain't scared to do so. He is more than willing to make someone miss and get through patiently, or cut it up the middle of the field, and then on the second level, make sure he's laying a defender down or stiff arming someone. And definitely has the ability to do all of that. Also has the ability to get skinny and burst through some of the small creases or gaps, and definitely at his size, it definitely caught my attention in terms of, like, I wasn't expecting that to be a part of his skill set. And then here he is, like, shooting through a small little gap and then, you know, climbing out of it, or even bursting out of it. Speaking of burst, quickness and speed certainly passed the eye test. He has a great build. Add that athleticism on top of it, and he's already better than most backs, that is, most running backs. I mean, the way that his body profile is, and then his athletic profile and the way that it looked on tape, it already makes him better than a lot of the other guys in this class, and just in general as a prospect. There's no avoidance yards in Quinshon Judkins. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about with avoidance yardage, it's like, okay, you're running by or up the boundary, and then, you know, a safety's crashing in, you step out of bounds early, right? You maybe lose 2 or 3 yards. Not Judkins, man. He'll fly until he is, you know, confronted or met out of bounds and is forced to go out or down. Kills teams with that diverse skill set, man. He gets the big gain, then a few runs that might be under 5 yards, but still grinding it out, and then all of a sudden he's gone for another 20 yards. And all of that is just the variety in his skill set. He has the ability to get everywhere and anywhere and do it to any defense, and that is very impressive as a running back. And we already talked about some of the intangibles with his stature, size, and then add the athletic profile on top of that. It just gives him a very diverse skill set that works well against virtually anyone. Now I'll hop into some of the bad things, which are, you know, very distinct and nitpicky here, but maybe a tad too patient at times. So maybe just a little, you know, half a second too patient every here and there. So that's a very minimal, you know, con to his game. His first, or I guess initial instinct when his line broke down wasn't the best in terms of direction and vision. Maybe there's a way that, you know, you can make someone miss or dive under and just lose 1 yard, but instead, you know, tries to power through and get stood up by a 300-pound lineman and loses 3 or 4 yards. So that wasn't always the best when the line wasn't there with him. And then I would say he's just inconsistent in pass pro. Probably the biggest ding for me was his pass pro, and something he can certainly improve on. And then watch TreVeyon Henderson do it as well, and maybe even let TreVeyon Henderson take some of those reps, and then, you know, Judkins doesn't really have to do it as much in those scenarios. Maybe get him on plays if you really think he's that bad. I don't think he's terrible, and I think he has like a solid power base, as much of these guys do, or as many of these guys do, but I just don't think that he's too consistent or perfect. I think he's just a little bit more flawed in pass pro. Another running back that I think particularly high on, it is Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back junior, listed at 5'9", 215, another small guy. I don't know what it is with me and small running backs. I don't get it. He can make people miss with his very effortless and fluid elusive ability. It just looks very natural for Jeanty to just make defenders, you know, go a little that way when he's going a little that way. You know, it looked very fluid and easy for him. He's got quicks, and he's fast. He accelerates fast and keeps increasing that pace. Plus, he can still make people miss at those higher speeds and something we talked about with who was it? It was Dallan Hayden in the first at number 10 on this list, where he makes people miss, but it's like kind of more subtle when you're at a higher speed, but you can just stick a foot in and go over a yard or two, and that itself at a higher speed, it makes a big difference. He finishes strong, and he has some runs where he goes Rambo, breaks a few tackles, keeps advancing forward through traffic, maybe shrugs another one off, jukes a guy out, like I said, kind of goes Rambo, and then finishes really strong in some of those runs as well, finishing through some contact or traffic. Has a very patient approach to the line, and once he sees a crease, he'll shoot a gap and make adjustments from there. I think we talked about it with Trevor Etienne, where when he needs to get out and get there, he can run straight to it. No patience, no hesitation. But when he needs to maybe think about it a little bit more, get calculated, he'll adjust and make his little adjustments, I guess is the best way to say it. Jeanty slips tackles routinely, especially early on his runs. He also has a great feel for keeping his feet grounded, and I wouldn't call it like contact balance necessarily, but I would call it contact balance. Actually, let's call it contact balance, where, you know, he shrugs off contact and stays up on his feet. So did a really nice job doing so, and then having that feel to keep his feet, or that ability to keep his feet on the ground or close to the ground, or somewhere where he's not going to, you know, jump up in the air, get swept off, and, you know, killed. The very low sample size I saw of Jeanty in Pass Pro, he passed the eye test for sure. When you're looking at him initially, first glance, first impression in Pass Pro was definitely a plus for Jeanty. He needs to be looked at more in the pass game, man. He's wide open so many times, especially in the flat, and he just doesn't even get looked at. And it's such a bummer too, because I think he's so good, especially with the ball in his hand. So why not get it to him out in the flat, where he has to make a boundary defender who's crashing down from 10 yards, and maybe a linebacker that's a little bit slower coming in from his right, get it to him, and that's a mismatch right away. Now we'll talk about the two cons I have listed down for him, and one of them is didn't have the best supporting cast and O-line in front of him, and just simply had some negative plays because of a little bit of a breakdown from the rest of his team, and like I said, supporting cast around him. In very crowded situation and the plays directed outside, he'll always want to bounce it all the way outside, and he'll lose yards instead of finding a crease earlier. And we talked about it with, it was TreVeyon Henderson, where he needs to make the decision to cut it up and get 3 yards instead of trying to get the edge and maybe go for that big play and lose 3 to 5 yards. Other than that, Jeanty is an awesome prospect. Unfortunately, I had a lack of tape on Jeanty, and I'm not happy about it. He looks incredible and someone I can see emerging as a top 3 back in this class for some and most people. I'm obviously one of those people putting him here at my running back 2. I love Ashton Jeanty a lot. No one should be surprised. My running back 1 is Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State junior, listed at 6'1", 211, and we'll hop into it here with a lot of pros and not a whole lot of cons. There's a little bit of a luggy look to him, like it just looks a little, you know, like he's carrying some dead weight or something, but when he's in open space, it definitely looks fast regardless. You know, you look at what it looks like, but it's not to what it shows up on tape as, I guess is the best way to say it. When he's in open space, he's definitely fast regardless of what it looks like. I guess that's the main idea trying to push here. Very effective through the air on design plays, scrambling with his quarterback, or just being a check down option out of the backfield. There's a lot of plays where he is an option out of the backfield. You should most definitely throw it to him. He is a creator, and I think they should have done it more, actually. I'm not gonna lie. His pivots and the way he braces for contact helps so much with how he absorbs and takes on tackles. I think the way this kid leans into tackles and the way he like braces for and angles his shoulders or wherever he is like expecting a hit, he like prepares for it early or sees it coming, or he's like, okay, I'm not gonna let his helmet like bury into the point where I'm gonna get like knocked off my spot, and I'm just gonna try to do my best to make it the least effective it can be. I don't know, but he braces for contact, and like I said, helps so much with how he absorbs that contact and takes on some of the tackles. Most guys will work to shrug off tackles or have to fight off tackles. Not Ollie. This man just keeps running, and if you're lucky, you'll stick. That's kind of the best way to put it. He'll run. If you're going to dive at his legs, you better hope you're holding on for dear life, because he doesn't even pay attention to you. He just keeps running, and you might get chopped up in a grinder. I don't know, but there's so many plays where he's just shrugging him off, and he doesn't even think twice, doesn't even have to look back, doesn't even have to work with his stiff arm or anything. He just keeps running, and he falls off. Even when everyone and their mom knows Ollie's getting the damn ball. No one can stop him. And I think that was the big deal with some of the better running backs is, okay, can you shut them down on any given play? You know the ball is going to be in their hands. It's an 88% chance Ollie Gordon's getting the damn football. Go stop him. And they can't. He might get slowed down, but very rarely does that mean that the run's anywhere close to over. He can break free from anything, anywhere, anytime. Name the place, he's there. Because honestly, like I said, he can get slowed down. He can break that first tackle. Maybe that lowers his speed, but it's still like the run can go on for another 10 yards at just jogging pace and deciphering a way through the second level and getting to that third level. He's quick for his size. He's fast for his size, and he's more elusive than you'd expect for his size, and he has a lot of power. He's good at every facet of the game, or every facet of the game. When you're talking about a running back, he doesn't look as fast. Like I mentioned, kind of had a luggy look to him, or something where he looks like it might be a little like slow. And he's definitely not like 4.4 like flat fast. I don't think. I might second guess that, but honestly, he's just good at every facet of the game, like we talked about. The game looks easy and slow for him. He reacts to everything around him with such poise and recognition. It just looks slow. Like the game is just a little bit slower. You know how you talk about how the game slows down for some of these young quarterbacks, and like, when did the game slow down for you, Bill? Oh, you know, it was in my third season. But no, Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State, he's running, and it looks like he just, you know, has everything, every information, recognition, and adjusts a second earlier than you'd expect or you'd think or whatever. The game like just slows down for him. It looks easy. From what I saw in pass pro, he's got a very solid anchor. He's persistent. He always moves and adjusts well to the defender. In my opinion, he is one of the better and more high effort pass protectors in this class at running back for sure. I'm not overwhelmed by the instincts, but it's not like they're bad. He still like gets to the right spot, and but I'm never like wowed, like how did you see that? And his vision, his patience, I'm not ever like, holy, oh my god, did you see that cutback? I didn't see that even on tape from an overhead view. I didn't even think that was a possibility. Like I'm never like, whoa, holy crap, wowed by his instincts, being his vision and patience pretty much. Okay, now this might be a nitpicky con, but I think his long legs, you know, something that you have to get nitpicky with Ollie Gordon, or else it looks like I just have one negative con. But I think his legs are just too long. I mean, it just looks a little unnatural at times, something we talked about when you're looking at like a little bit of a luggy. I'm going to bring that up for the 20th time, but a luggy. And I think it's just because it just looks a little unnatural at times. And, you know, for tripping reasons, maybe Ollie Gordon a little bit more susceptible to that, with a little bit more of a clumsy and longer legs and look to him, I guess. I don't know. But everything's good at this kid. I get the running back one hype for him, though I don't see him being far and out the best. I think that he, Ashton, Quinshon Judkins are all in that same tier and in that running back one conversation, but they're going to duke it out all season long. And I think Ollie Gordon has the best chances to prevail as running back one for a majority and for consensus reasons. So Ollie Gordon, running back one, to cap off the running back rankings. Well, that was the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, go down and subscribe, go watch any of the past content on the channel. It would help me out a lot, and we have a lot more of fun upcoming videos for you guys, including the 2025 class once the NFL preseason starts. Maybe just doing some all 22 breakdowns on the rookies from last year and just stuff like that. Maybe tape breakdowns of prospects that we expect to come out in 2025. Just a lot of fun stuff to look forward to, and I'm trying to do my best over here. Let me know if you have any recommendations or suggestions down in the comments below to improve the videos, the channel, everything, and all facets of that as well. So I'll see you guys next time. Deuces.